The best part of walking in the darkness with God is the proximity of His presence. Unlike walking in the light, the darkness demands that you feel your way forward by walking right next to your God. So close that your skin touches His and you sense the warmth of His presence guiding you every step of the way. Sometimes, in the midst of that darkness, if you're really confident in God's goodness and really confused by His ways, you just might take hold of Him and refuse to let go, just like Jacob did. Sonia Thalman is my good friend, and she was born and lived in Washington State. She met her husband, Jason, there. They've been married for quite some time. They're the parents of two girls, Sophia, who's 16, and Addison, who's 14. Sonia works with Marriage Helpers, which is a ministry that helps to save marriages. And then she also works with me as we're opening prayer clinics in churches and businesses all over the place. You're going to love Sonia.
My darkness began about 3 years ago. I was in a place to where I felt we had just moved to Tennessee, and I just felt kind of alone. And I was just really struggling with life itself, trying to figure out, where I was as a mom and as a wife. And by nature, I'm a people pleaser. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody else around me was happy and doing well. And I neglected my needs. And also being a people pleaser, I just also don't communicate very well because I bottle things up and I shove things down. And that was just my way of handling my different emotions. But I think over the years, it all came pretty hard and pretty strong. I've been married for 17 years. I've got 2 kids. They are now 14 and 16. And the troubles really just started with me not really just knowing myself or loving myself or really just having a place. And I just started to really just lash out in a way to where I just didn't do very good things or say very nice things, and took it out on my husband and my kids. And the more that my husband pushed, the further away that I got, and what led to a near divorce. And so my story is really just about, almost coming to a divorce and really just pouring into God, and God saved our marriage. So again, it was 3 years ago, and I decided that I wanted out of my marriage. I was done. And like I said, I had done some really, really horrible things, and it was things that, I can't take back, and things that my children saw, and, not very nice things that I did to my husband, but I was done with the marriage and I wanted out. My husband had left for a business trip. He was gone for a week, and during that week, I went and found an apartment, and I decided that I was going to move out. I told him the day that he got home from his business trip that I had found an apartment. I went to show him the apartment and where his kids were going to be living. And I started packing my things. And so we ended up telling the girls that same evening. And it was really, when I look back at it, it was really strange, because at that point, I was pretty emotionless. Like, my girls were crying, he was crying, and I was just done. So I moved out, and I was going to stand my ground. And again, that people pleaser in me was no longer. I was decided that I was going to be strong, and I was going to fight for myself. Again, looking back, I have some regrets. I definitely have regrets on how I could have done things differently. But in the end, I'm here and we're still married, and that's where God came in. But even during this time when I had moved out, my husband was really, really trying to help us work on the marriage. We went through counseling, several different counselors. He begged me to go to church, and I was like, church isn't going to fix anything. God's not going to fix anything, because I had my mind made up. I put so much pain on just not even our immediate family, the girls and my husband. It was a lot of pain just from my parents and his parents, and just the people around us, the people that love us. But I also, during this time, I was listening to the outside world. Rather than going to church with him and really just diving into the counseling, I was listening to the outside world of the friends and the family members that have been through divorce, and they were cheering it on. They were saying, the grass is greener on the other side. You're going to find a great person that's going to, be all the things that you're not getting right now. And that's who I chose to listen to. I was separated for about 6 months, and it was when my husband came to me and he said, "This is it." I went and saw an attorney. They're drawing up the divorce papers. So if this is what you want, this is it. And I took some time and really thought about my future and what that looked like. And I came to realize that that's not what I wanted. I couldn't imagine my children having another mom. I couldn't imagine my children, graduating from high school and getting married, and me not being there with my husband and enjoying those moments with him. So it took several weeks and several months to start repairing the relationship. And while we were separated, the beautiful thing is even though I have a lot of regrets on how I handled that situation, we both did a lot of work on ourselves. I got to know myself a little bit better and really just kind of understand and think about my values and what I wanted out of life. And he did too. So we came back together in August of 2019. We moved into a new house and into a new area. And at that point in time, I was like, this is my happily ever after. This is where it's at. And I'm, so happy that we're working things out. But it wasn't until this point in time, in like the August, September timeframe of 2019, those were some of my darkest days, because I still wasn't connected to God. I remember just feeling, not only was I disconnected from God, but I still felt really disconnected from my husband. And I felt like maybe he was questioning, is this really the right thing? And did we make a good decision? I woke up one morning and I decided not to go to work. I drove to a friend's house and I asked her to pray with me. And I felt like I didn't deserve to be prayed for. I felt like I didn't deserve to ask God for anything after what I had done. After I left her house, I drove into Thompson Station Church and I knocked on the doors. And I asked somebody to pray for me, and I just needed to know that I was going to be okay. And it was Terry Staley that came out. And she promised me that God still loved me and that I was still worthy. And it was that point in time that I decided to pour everything into God. At that point in time, I felt like that was what I had to do. It was, I don't want to say it was my only option, but that's, at that point in time, that's what I felt, because that was the one thing missing from my life, is I had shut God completely out of my life, because I felt like I could just do everything on my own. So I gave it all to God, and I just asked him, like, just please just take away this pain and this anxiety. I had never dealt with anxiety before, but I just remember feeling, several days where I was just very anxious and feeling depressed. And so I really just needed to give that to God. And that's how I just really started growing in my faith. We started to come to church as a family, and it was probably 6 months after that where I decided to dedicate my life and get baptized. I was baptized as a baby, and so I had never walked that path before. And I can say just through all of this, and here I am 3 years later, and we're still working on our marriage, and there's days that are super tough, and I find myself in the darkness, but I just know that I have to trust God in the process, and I know that he's got my marriage, and I know that he's got my family and my husband. And so I know in my heart that as long as I put all of my trust in him, that we're going to be okay.